Hey everyone, it's Lorcus here, and today Trundle was released, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about him as well as the other Freljord cards that were released yesterday, or revealed. I like to say released because it's like a release of knowledge, I guess, but first card is Trundle, a 5 mana 4/6 with regen. When I'm summoning, create an Ice Pillar in hand, and it levels up when Ice Pillar is played, or when he has seen Ice Pillar be played, which is pretty important to recognize. And then the Ice Pillar is a 8 mana 0/8 vulnerable, play refill 8 mana. So you have to have 8 mana to play this, but it doesn't really cost you all that much to play it technically. The big thing is that you have to play it first in some cases, which against some decks that could be annoying, but whatever on it. Play around start, give the strongest enemy vulnerable this round. That is pretty neat. So Trundle, 5 mana 4/6 stats with regen is pretty good. Anything with high amount of health with regen can become very scary. Any kind of buffs on it becomes kind of scary as well. It doesn't have overwhelm at the time, but when he levels up, he gets overwhelm as well, which is very important to note. So that can be a finisher in some ways, although that is, pretty late. You're at least playing 8 mana to level him up. Even though it refills, that's still later in the game. When I'm summoning, create an Ice Pillar, same thing. Attack grants me +1/0 for each 8+ cost card you behold. So I believe that means in your hand. I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah, that was from yesterday. So that's if it's in your hand or on the back row. So it's in play or in your hand. So it's pretty interesting. It's really hard to define these cards just because it's really hard to know how good ramp is going to be and what the meta is going to look like. I feel like generally in a healthy meta that you don't see this as much, but just because it's greedy and I think combo takes over a lot of the time. But we might see ramp meta at some point. I'm not saying it's impossible by any means, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of rate these cards more in a vacuum in some ways and maybe say what I think would happen. Ice Pillar, giving the vulnerable, giving something that essentially is kind of like a challenger in some way to pull things away is pretty nice. It's a good blocker as well, but it does have a vulnerable, so I guess it isn't really that great of a blocker because you can just, how like a 1/1 spider pull it over. So it also makes sense that it has vulnerable. If it didn't, it would be much, much stronger in a very scary way, I think. So I'm happy to see that it has vulnerable on it. And giving the strongest enemy vulnerable is it's pretty nice. The fact that you can move away the thing that's most likely to block your overwhelm units is really good. So the Augur of the Old Ones, it is regen and overwhelm with a 6 mana 5/5 body. Play if you behold 8+ cost cards, great and ally overwhelm and regen. Personally, I know some people thought this card was really good. I think it's a win more card personally, and that generally means it's not very good for like competitive play, although it's great for memes. I think the Behold makes it quite a bit worse too, but 6 mana 5/5 stats really aren't that great, and the regen is a bit scary and overwhelm, but I think giving something else overwhelm regen too, I think it's just going to be win more a lot of the time, and I don't really see this card being competitively viable, but in some metas it definitely could be. Trundle's Icequake, 8 mana slow spell. Give all units a -3, -0 this round. Deal 3 to all units. Shuffle Trundle into your deck. I feel like 8 mana slow spells just aren't going to be that great. And 3 late game really isn't that much when you have a bunch of units that have 5/5s and such like that. If it's that late into the game, you're going to have chunkier units. Frostbiting things would help it for sure, and it is all units. I don't know, it just seems, when I compare this to Ruination, it just feels much worse. Like, I know the idea is you have things that have over 3 health on your side, like Trundle, and maybe Hearthguard, and just other cards that you played because you ramped up, but it just feels too slow and too costly to me. Next card, Broad-Backed Protector. Round start, heal your Nexus 3, deal damage to the enemy, or deal damage to me equal to the amount healed. This is a Targon card, and it's a troll. Heal your Nexus 3, deal damage to me equal to the amount healed. Interesting. Yeah, this could, I know people are talking earlier about this could be dependent on how Soraka is. I don't know, this card feels like it's going to fit somewhere. Healing your Nexus for 3 in a 2/7 body or a 4-mana 2/7 if it's not healed, as far as I'm understanding, seems pretty decent. A 2/7 body can block multiple times, and that's pretty sweet. And most likely you're going to be playing slightly more defensive with this type of card, so it seems like it's going to be pretty good value. Hard to say for sure, but I like that card quite a bit. Revitalizing Roar, 7 mana slow, pick a unit in your hand to reveal, heal your Nexus by its power, reduce its cost to 0 when enlightened. Alright, reducing cost to 0 is one of the most scary things in games. So, at one point this card's going to become broken. That's just generally how it is. At one point, there's going to be a way to get this card out and it to reduce the cost to 0 on something that's just not supposed to be 0 mana, and this card will become broken. Do I think we're at that point right now? No, but any kind of card that has mana cheating like that can be incredibly powerful in the right metas in some kind of combo, and it is very, very spooky. So, I know some people talked about the Zephyr Infinite combo. Honestly, I think that's going to be too slow. It's a great meme, but I don't really see it doing all that much. You just never know, though, because there can always be more support, and then all of a sudden it is just broken. But for now, I think the card isn't that good, but it doesn't mean that it won't be broken in the future, or at least part of a broken combo. Anything that says reduced to 0, especially when it has, like, no cap limit on it. It's not like anything below 5 mana to 0. It is anything to 0, and that's so spooky. Next one, the Stellacorn. That's cool art. I love that art. 5 mana, 4/5 Targonian card. Play heal an ally and your Nexus 3. So it's kind of like Tavern Keeper, but it heals 2 things instead. A lot of the times it's hard to heal an ally, so it's kind of a 5 mana 4/5 heal your Nexus. You know, 5 mana 5 health is pretty okay. It's a little bit understated. I think at a 5/5 the card would be pretty nuts though. I mean, healing an ally can just be really big. It's also hard to say because we don't know exactly what Targonian cards will look like and what Soraka will look like. So anything that has heal on it, I think of Soraka, and if there is something big with that, this card could be really good. It's really hard to say right now. So let's go ahead and go on to the second set of the troll cards. And there is the new keyword, Behold. Bonus if you have that type of card in player hand, which I spoke about earlier. And that is seems to be a Freljord keyword as of now. Alright, there is the Faces of the Old Ones. Round start, if you behold an A+ card, get an extra mana gem this round. So this means this has to be alive. It's a 2 mana 0/2. I don't see it as being good at all, especially when I'm expecting challengers with the support archetype. I feel like this card's just going to die. It can't trade. It has to live. It just does not seem very good. And you have to have you can have this in your hand and not even have the 8+ cost card in hand. That just seems really bad. There'll be times where it high rolls, but I can't see this card being super great. Next one is Troll Scavenger. When I'm summoned, if you behold 8+, giving it to me +3/0, so it's a 4/3 for 2. Interesting for sure. If you're going to be playing the 8+ archetype, it's definitely going to be in there. It's one of your few of 2 drops that you're good with. I would play that before the Faces. 2 mana 1/3 is pretty understated though, so you really do have to have these 8+ cost cards in hand, which is important. I wonder if Trundle will be seeing a bit more play if this ramp archetype is played. I would assume it will be a Trundle in a lot of cases. Next one is the Troll Ravager. 4 mana, 3/5. When I'm summoned, if you behold 8+ cost card, grant me regen. 4 mana, 3/5 regen. Yeah, it's a pretty good blocker. I don't know where that 4 slot's going to look like. I have no idea what the 4 slot's going to look like. It seems more part of a troll roleplay deck, I guess, in some ways. A lot of these cards do, but hard to say. Uzgar the Ancient, 8 mana, 7/7, Challenger region. That's a pretty neat card. I think 8 mana is going to be a bit too slow, and this is like an 8 mana control card, not an 8 mana I win the game card. And we do have quite a few cards that are more closer, 8 and 9 mana, that are win the game cards. So you're going to have to be playing a very slow archetype. We're talking about War Mothers here, for instance. But, man, really, a War Mothers deck is probably going to be the way to go about this, because an 8+ cost card, then you don't feel as bad about getting War Mothers stuck in your hand. I think it's a cool card. In some cases it will. If you're playing this card, you've already won the game, unless you're in the mirror. You've already won the game if you're playing this card against a mid-range list. But I guess it can help close it out because of the regen in some cases. Next card is Troll Chant Burst. Give an ally +2 health and give an enemy -2 attack this round. It's a good combat trick. That's about all I have to say about it. I need to think about it a little bit more about how good I think it is. I think some people might be overrating it a little bit, because in order to play this card, there has to be an enemy on the board as well as an ally on the board. Elixir of Iron is compared to it, but Elixir of Iron being 1 mana is super relevant. 1 mana combat tricks are super hard to play around because people very rarely get below 1 mana or 1 spell mana. So I can't really say how good this card will be. I'm sure it will be played. I don't think it's anything too insane, but I don't think it's bad either. I think it's a pretty solid card overall. And then 3 mana burst, Call the Wild. I really want to call it Call of the Wild, but Call the Wild. For the top 4 cards in your deck, draw each Yeti, Poro, and Elnuk. They need to have trolls too. I think this card really needed to have troll tags and add trolls too. It'd make it so much more fun to me, at least. And then shuffle the rest into your deck. It's only the top 4 cards in your deck. That's... I mean, this is definitely a roleplay deck. You can always guarantee that 1 Yeti with Trapper in some cases, but right now Poros aren't quite strong enough. Maybe they would be in the future, and then Elnuks are pretty weak right now too. It seems like a good video for me to make, but I don't see it being competitively viable at the time. So yeah, this is really interesting. It's really hard to say what I expect from these cards because there's just so much that hasn't been released yet, and we haven't seen really ramp archetypes in this game yet. There was at the very beginning, because Catalyst, the Protector, used to be 4 mana instead of 5, and Weirding Stones were cheaper as well, I believe. So we saw ramp a lot more, but we haven't seen it since then. So Riot is going ahead and just toying around with it, and I feel like they're being pretty... I don't know if timid is the right word, but they definitely don't want this to be too good, because if ramp is too good, then you just knock out everything else in the game, and that's not very good for the game if, you know, everything just becomes a greed fest from ramping. Like, who can ramp more? That's not a good game for us. So they are being timid on it, or hesitant, which I think is a good thing. They can always buff it up if they want it to be better. Of course, they can always nerf it too, but then people who fell in love with the archetype will not be happy, which is completely understandable. So overall, I like these cards, and I mean, it's just, I'm so excited to see what happens. I'm still most excited to experiment with Taric and Lulu, though. Those are the ones that I'm really excited to do different things with and mess around with. So thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you tomorrow for hopefully a new deck, a stream, and I'm wanting to do a lot more content. I'm feeling better now, and thank you all for your support. Bye!
That's how we do things in Bilgewater.